What's going on today, guys? My name is Kyle, and I'm finally going to be talking about the 30th anniversary of Aliens. At the same time, guys, welcome back to My Favorite Films, the section of my channel where I talk about those movies that just impact me the most, and Aliens is certainly one of them. This is one of the best sci-fi action movies ever made. This movie is directed by the one and only James Cameron, who has a very good track record of making sequels that completely outdo the original. James Cameron, as we all know, later directed Terminator 2 Judgment Day, which is my all-time favorite movie, so mad respect to you, James. Having just rewatched Aliens, I can positively say that this is now my second favorite James Cameron film, because everything from the acting, to the action, to the set design, to the lighting, just everything about it is so perfect. This movie once again stars Sigourney Weaver in my favorite performance of hers, reprising her role as Ellen Ripley, who after being the lone survivor of the last alien attack spends 57 years drifting off in space until she is finally rescued and brought back to Earth. She then discovers that LV-426 has been recently colonized and there are now people living there, and after being met with complete and total skepticism from the company, they then discover that LV-426 has been under attack by an unseen force, so they send a team of colonial marines in to go fight the aliens. Now, the plot of Aliens is very simple, and to me that's a great thing, because you don't need some massive plot, you don't need some massive villain and some weird lair, you don't need any of that. You just need a badass action movie with marines going in and kicking ass, and that's all you need. But fortunately for Aliens, there are a ton of subplots that actually really help the movie. Even though this mission is for the Marines, there's a very good subplot involving the government. And they want to make sure the Marines know that this is a multi-billion-dollar corporation that they really can't be destroyed. And I think that subplot works really well because you introduce the character of Burke, played by Paul Reiser, who I think is a very overlooked actor. I really like his work. And in this movie, he of course plays a jackass, but what I like about his character is that he just has so much of an involvement with this movie that I'll address later on, but I think in the beginning of the film he comes across as kind of a humble person. When Newt is introduced, played fantastically by Carrie Henn, there is a beautiful subplot involving her and Ripley, creating this mother-daughter bond that is one of the sweetest, most touching bonds to ever grace the screen, and this is in an action, science fiction, horror film. Honestly, guys, the choices that James Cameron made in this movie are some of the smartest choices ever in an action movie. We also find out a lot about the Marines themselves. We find out that they have really good camaraderie, that they've been through a ton of missions, and you feel a good sense of friendship with them because that very first scene where they're introduced was the last scene to be shot. You got the strict Sergeant Apone, you got Colonel Hicks, played fantastically by Michael Biehn, who's also Kyle Reese in Terminator. You got the comic relief in Private Hudson, played brilliantly by Bill Paxton. I love his performance, he's so funny. You have the trigger-happy people, Vasquez and Drake, and then we of course meet the synthetic Bishop, which is met with a lot of controversy from Ripley because Ash from the previous movie tried to kill her. You have all of these different people, but they feel so similar and they feel like they could come together really well. Another reason why they're so good is because they're very relatable to us, because just like the audience, they are completely clueless with what they're about to get themselves into. They have no idea what a xenomorph is. They have no idea what they can do. They have no idea what a chestburster is. And that's why when that first chestburster comes out, they all look shocked. And just as they burn the chestburster, all the aliens start to appear, which is a fantastic scene. These sequences would be nothing without the brilliant, and I mean brilliant, lighting. The lighting in this movie is spectacular, and at times you could even say it's immaculate. It is perfectly lit to really add tension to the scenes. The late James Horner, rest in peace, because he made really good scores. His score for this movie I think is really good. It's very dramatic and you really just feel the weight of it. You feel the intensity of every single situation. I also think James Cameron's directing should be absolutely praised. This movie is directed so brilliantly. Once they reach LV-426, I like the fact that Cameron utilizes a lot of handheld cam, because it really gives a very in-the-moment feel, kind of like a documentary. And to me, that's because we don't know what happened on LV-426. We don't know how they got in there. We don't know how they attacked the colony. We have no idea. With the use of handheld cam and the added benefit of unpredictability, it just moves and helps every single sequence become 10 times better. The first half of the movie to me is more of a contained thriller/horror movie, and the second half is just complete and total awesome action. Every single action sequence in this movie is shot to perfection. I am just so pumped when I talk about this, and I'm not even watching the movie, but I can just picture every action scene in my mind. And also, really fun fact, the very first action sequence does not occur until exactly 63 minutes into the film.
Maybe they don't show up on infrared at all.
When you have good characters, a compelling protagonist, a great story, and beautiful tension, All of that comes together and it makes for a very excellent pace. Now going back to that first action sequence, what I think is very underestimated and overlooked is just how fast those Marines die. Because I'm pretty sure there's at least a dozen of them, and only 3 of them survive. They all die within, I'd say, a minute to 2 minutes of screen time. Even though this movie really is very serious, we at least have the comic relief Hudson. And Bill Paxton just has a way of making you laugh, and the amount of times he says, "man," is just so funny.
Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
And I really love the expansion of the mother-daughter bond with Ripley and Newt. It really is touching. And if there's one thing you know that I hate in action or science fiction movies is when they want to have that romance in there just to appeal to a certain demographic. But this feels genuine and it feels real because this is a scared little girl. She really looks up to Ripley as her mother, and at the ending of the film she says,
Oh, God.
so after discovering Paul Reiser's government plan, as well as discovering he wanted the aliens to impregnate Ripley and Newt, this leads to one of the scariest, most intense sequences ever shown on film.
They cut the power.
What do you mean they cut the power? How could they cut the power, man? They're animals.
I want you two with trackers checking the corridors. Move!
I mean it, guys, this sequence is still terrifying to this day, and I really think it's down to the lighting, because once again, the lighting is spectacular. The lighting of the sequence is red, foreshadowing that some crazy stuff is about to happen. The scanner Hudson uses in the scene is perfect, because it just builds and builds and builds tension.
8 meters. 7.
This goes from a very contained fight to another contained fight in a ventilation system, which is one of the best sets ever built. I can't even tell you how great this scene is because not only is the lighting great and the acting's great, but it feels so open despite the fact that this is a very contained set. And also, I gotta talk about the xenomorphs. They look so realistic. It amazes me how this movie has aged very well. This movie is 30 years old, guys. I need to reiterate this. This movie is 30 years old. It was made in 1986. And the fact that this movie has held up so well after 30 years, and the fact that this movie is still so terrifying, and the fact that the aliens are so realistic, it truly amazes me how no other alien movie was ever able to rise up to the level that this movie had. There really isn't anything that looks dated in this movie, and that I think really helped it out. So of course, finding out that Newt's still alive, they decide to go back, and here comes one of the best shots ever in cinematic history. Everything about this sequence is phenomenal. It is truly one of the best action sequences ever created. I think it's in my top 5, maybe even top 3, because you have the best female heroine I think of all time. The only competition with her character is Furiosa. But what I love about Ripley specifically is that not only does she not have to be over-sexualized, she doesn't need to be this blonde in a bikini. She doesn't need any of that. She can just be a badass on her own. But another thing that makes Ripley's character so great is that she has compassion, she has heart. She's willing to risk her own life to save a little girl because she feels a solid connection, which to me is unparalleled to any action movie featuring a female protagonist. This then of course leads to the reveal of the Queen alien, which looks huge, and I love that neck turning that Ripley gives right before she starts to blow the thing up. And then, of course, she just unloads every single bullet. But it was just so cool the way she did it. Because at that time, no one had ever seen a movie like this before. And at the same time, we've never seen a female protagonist do that, ever. We need way more movies with strong female protagonists. And Ripley, to me, is the primest of the prime examples. And what I never noticed before is once they go in the elevator, you can actually hear the theme from the original Alien film, which I thought was really cool. I thought it was a really good throwback to that original film. And then as they get back on the ship, James Horner's score just boosts, and I just want to play you guys this sequence because I love it so much. We then discover that the alien queen actually survived as it just rips Bishop apart. Oh man, that was awesome. As it chases Newt through the grates, Ripley comes out in that suit and says one of the best cinematic lines ever.
Get away from her, you bitch!
The ensuing fight scene just feels so good, and I think it's because the effects here are really practical, and I really respect the filmmakers for going that route. So Ripley just kicks that alien into space, and I like the fact that she screams right before that because she's just letting out all her anger. So that's the end of the movie, and guys, Aliens is, I think, in my top 10 favorite movies of all time now. Because I've seen this movie, I think, 5 to 10 times, but I've never loved it more, and I really respect the filmmakers for making every great decision they could by making the aliens practical, by making our human characters relatable and likable, by having one of the strongest protagonists ever with Ripley, by having a great mother-daughter bond between Ripley and Newt. Everything about this movie is fantastic. It's phenomenal. I love you, James Cameron. You are amazing. The cast is all perfect. Aliens, to me, is a perfect movie, and because of that, I need to give this movie an A+. So what do you guys think about Aliens? I'd love to hear those comments, so send them in the comment section below. And guys, thank you so much for watching my reviews. As always, you guys are the best people ever. Thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned.